Welcome back to the Goonerverse podcast, everyone. We're going to just come clean immediately and say we are recording straight after the Liverpool game, the 0-0 draw. If you want my thoughts on that, that will be on the Goonerverse and Goonerverse News. Luz Canners is out later today, hence again the shorter episode. Apologies for that. We appreciate there's a lot of podcast content coming out and we don't want to overdo it. So a lot of the match reaction will be found there. We'll get Sheroy's thoughts briefly on the game, and then we're going to talk about Gary Neville's comments during commentary, which I don't think are on, and I want to talk about that in more detail. We'll talk about the Mark Guehi links, the transfer window in general, and all that. But Sheroy, first and foremost, how are you, mate?
Yeah, all right, man. All right. Look, this was my first week back at work, like most people. Been in the office all week, looking forward to this game. And I thought, you know what, man, I'm tracking again. I'm training. I'll wait until Thursday night to get my takeaway. Ordered myself a little Pepe's, sat down, ready for the game, ready for a spectacle, saw the light show, saw the videos that came out before. And then I watched what we just watched. Probably the most anticlimactic performance I've seen from Arsenal this season, if I'm being honest with you. But yeah, all in all, a little bit disappointed. I can't lie. How are you?
Well, yeah, I mean, all we can do as football fans is turn up and watch it. But some people might struggle to watch it. And if you are struggling, you can with NordVPN because you know what? And I can actually say, you all know what VPN is, a virtual private network. Over my time in Italy, my brother who's out in Australia right now, using NordVPN, genuinely, I'm being deadly serious. We've used NordVPN. We've been able to keep up with the content that we want to watch. Some of it might not just be TV series or movies. It might be, something that involves a ball and, a pitch and whatever. So, guys, go get NordVPN. Like I said, of course, it opens a world of content. You've heard this a million times from us that you can go abroad and watch the content you're watching at home. You can open a world of content from home as well. I know Netflix have taken some shows off recently, which is really frustrating me. NordVPN can open that world of content as well if they are, of course, being shown in other regions and other areas. But of course, you also get protected with things like public Wi-Fi. I keep saying this. I don't think people believe me. You can genuinely, because I've seen it happen to my friend, you can have your social media, your passwords, whatever it is, hacked by public Wi-Fi, and NordVPN will protect you from that. It's premium cybersecurity for the price of a cup of coffee per month. One NordVPN account, shall I say, can be used on up to 10 devices. And to get the best discount, this is what I'm going to read them because I don't want to get this bit wrong. To get the best discount, go to nordvpn.com/the Goonerverse. You get 4 extra months on a 2-year plan as well. And there's no risk with NordVPN's 30-day money-back guarantee. The link is in the description of this podcast. Big up to NordVPN, as always. I feel sorry for my brother that he used it to watch that game, but, at least it works. So, yeah, shout out to Nord. Sure, I said we'll get your thoughts on this game because you haven't you, to get that off your chest, and I think you deserve to, so go for it. Get it off your chest.
Look, I'm not going to take up too much time because I know this is a shortened podcast, but I think the thing
you
that
say
really
what you got to say, man. You say what you got to say.
The thing that really disappointed me the most is I remember the Anfield game. I remember watching it thinking they're not really carrying that level of attacking threat. They could be here for the taking. And there were loads of misplaced passes from us, and there were loads of sort of uncharacteristic decisions in possession. And there was just this element of that's not the Arsenal that I expected. And I thought that, well, you get that out of your system against Liverpool, you bring them to your gaff, form changes. It's not going to happen again, is it? And the fact that it did, I think, is what's upset me the most. Look, in terms of the result, James, bro, we can eat it. Like, okay, fine, the gap's still 6 points, you move on. This hasn't really impacted the way in which I perceive us in the title race. Don't get me wrong, but that performance was disappointing for all the reasons that I said. We were expecting a spectacle. And all of the messaging beforehand, no one can look at the fans and say they weren't on it. My God, they were absolutely up for it. And it was pissing it down today, bro. I mean, I would not have blamed a lot of those fans if they'd sort of begrudgingly turned up because of that weather. But they didn't do that. They went there and they absolutely sang their hearts out. And it would have been nice just to see a few more glimpses of that being reflected amongst the players. But look, I don't want to dampen the mood too much because ultimately I know it's cliche and I know a lot of people will say it. 6 points clear 8th of Jan. Cool. Let's move. I'll take it.
Yeah, I said that in my match reaction very similarly that, I don't really care that it's kind of like 6 points, not 8. I mean, obviously I wish it was 8, right? You got more chance of winning the league if it's 8, not 6. This is still an incredibly healthy position to be in. I didn't expect City to draw to Brighton or Chelsea. So if someone had said to me before a ball was kicked against Bournemouth and Chelsea that you're going to end up 6 points ahead of City after these games, I'd have bit your hand off for it. I'm fine. I'm genuinely fine with that. Villa just drew at Palace too, so that's fine. For me, it was just the temperament we showed. I talked about it in match reaction. I won't go on about it. There's just too much, like the weird. The word is weird for me. We were just weird throughout that game. I don't think we managed the occasion very well. But hey ho, look, what did happen in that game, and the reason I said that part of it was so weird was the Gabriel Martinelli incident. Now, Gary Neville had some things to say in commentary. I'll try to find the exact quotes, but first, let me ask you what you made of Gabby Martinelli trying to push Connor Bradley off the pitch at that time.
I don't ever want to see that sort of stuff, if I'm being honest with you. I mean, you can see, I think Declan Rice reacted to it the right way. Declan Rice stood behind the player, looked at the referee, pointed towards the touchline, and he was standing off the pitch, and he said, "Get him off." And that is what you do. You let the officials deal with it. You let the coaching staff deal with it. At that point, I didn't know that he needed to go off on a stretcher, right? But it was a possibility. And if you look at the footage, Gabriel Martinelli is someone that has suffered with injury in his career, right? In fact, he went down for a sustained period in the box today, thinking that he was going to get a penalty. He was on the floor. Now, he drops the ball on him. He leans into him, and then he tries to push him off. I think Szoboszlai actually dealt with it quite well and quite amicably after the match when he was asked. He said, "Look, I understand."
I think so too. I thought it was great.
He didn't try and sort of stick the knife in. He said, "Look, I know you want to win. We wanted to win too, but I think player welfare is paramount." And what adds insult to injury, no pun intended, is he then does get stretchered off, and it doesn't look great. And the problem is it's sort of the straw that breaks the camel's back in terms of what you were saying, the lack of composure, the head loss. That some of the wins that we've had recently, we've watched us and we've sat there and gone touch of class there, and we've known when to be aggressive and when not to be, and it's all been quite amicable and sportsmanlike afterwards. It quite classy and quite sort of champion-like, if you will. That to me didn't really sum up the essence of what I wanted to see. Now, Arteta after the match, which I caught briefly before we started recording, he said, "Look, I'm sure that Gabriel Martinelli didn't understand the significance of the injury, and he couldn't have known that he was that hurt. He's not that kind of guy." And I'm surprised because I don't think Gabriel Martinelli is that kind of character either. I think there was a lot of what I saw today where I was sat there going, I sent this to a few friends on WhatsApp. I said, I don't really know or recognize what I'm watching in terms of the football. But that was one of those moments where it wasn't quite football. It was something other than football. But again, I didn't quite know or recognize that. Very, very, very surprising. And all of it did seem to also surprise the manager. In his presser, he was asked, "Did you know what Liverpool were going to do today?" And he said, "Well, yeah, I did. I anticipated, in all honesty, that they weren't going to carry much attacking threat because of who they had available. I thought they'd pack out the midfield. I thought they'd probably play Verts, false nine. I kind of got it right, but we were imprecise." He looked frustrated. He looked like he wasn't expecting to see what we saw today either. And that ultimately culminates in what was a relatively ugly display from Martinelli towards the end.
Yeah, I think saying that you don't recognize the team, I think is a really great way of putting it. That's exactly how I felt. I didn't recognize us on the ball, off the ball, certainly not after the 20th minute. I didn't recognize some of the antics. But again, I've touched on that a lot. I imagine I will on Loose Cannons, which is out today. And I certainly did in my match reaction. I think, having said all that, players with 60,000 fans, all the cameras, managers, teammates, in torrential rain, getting screamed at, I can understand a poor piece of judgment. And that was from Martinelli. And I hope that when he's got the chance to speak on it or whatever, that the apology has been issued, because it should, and everyone moves on. Obviously, we hope Connor Bradley's all right too. He gets stretched off. It doesn't look good. But Gary Neville, look, I do think he's a good pundit. I do think he's a good commentator. And yeah, over the years, Arsenal fans have had their thing back and forth with Gary. And I've not always agreed with Arsenal fans, to be honest, but a lot of things they've got a point. But to come out and say, quote, "I'm actually fuming with Martinelli. I don't know how those Liverpool players didn't go over and just whack him." To say that, and he actually follows it up. I haven't got that in the quote there. He actually follows it up with, take a red card. Gary, man, like, that is such appalling commentary. And I'm not gonna go as far as to say, because some people might go, like, I could sit here quite what's the word? Basically pompous and be like, that's advocating violence. He's obviously not. I think what he's trying to say is, like, basically, you know how players might put their body in someone. That's what he's saying. But like, you just you're on a mainstream broadcaster. You've got to pick your words better, and you've got to like. It almost looks embarrassing on Gary Neville that Szoboszlai came out. Like Liverpool players actually showed quite a degree of composure in that moment. They were defending their player, but I don't think they went overboard. And then Szoboszlai in the post match spoke about it brilliantly. And it's like Gary and I think Roy Keane, I saw some quotes, and you mentioned they were just pouring fuel on the fire. And I just thought, this is really strange. Gabby clearly thought that he'd rolled himself back onto the pitch. Actually, I haven't seen the footage of that. I don't know if he did. And he clearly felt that, Conor Bradley was trying to be cheeky in that moment, but he got it absolutely horribly wrong. And he dealt with it terribly. And Martinelli is going to catch a lot of flack for that. But that commentary is appalling from Gary Neville, in my opinion.
It's also entirely inconsistent with the condemnation that he just delivered as to Martinelli's conduct, isn't it? If you're talking about, oh, that's quite ugly, that's a bit unsportsmanlike, that's not what we want to see, but then go, you should have whacked him one and taken a red. It's kind of like, well, hold on, which person are you here?
Yeah,
like you can't quite be both, right? If you want the mature, respectful, they might add the time on, let him stay on the pitch. Then you also have to be the guy that says, well, quite right, Liverpool, you defended your player, but it didn't escalate. But Gary Neville seems to have gone the other way there, and I think obviously that comes from. It's no coincidence that it's Neville and Keane that have come out with that sort of stuff, because they did play in an era and they did play in a team where it's likely that someone would have gone and been a lot more aggressive than those Liverpool players were. But in the same way that I've just said, I don't want to see players doing what Martinelli did. I don't want to see players doing what Gary Neville was suggesting he was surprised that he didn't see. And I think there is people very often talk about how us as podcasters have an element of responsibility, not just towards our team, but towards a number of things, right? And I do agree with that. If you have any platform, whether you have 10 people listening, whether you have 100 people listening or more, you need to be acutely aware of who's listening to what you're saying and carry yourself in a particular way to a degree. If you're on mainstream television and you have a podcast that comes out in your name every week and you've got the amount of followers and you're ultimately, I'm pretty sure is he a Premier League Hall of Famer? Or am I making that up? I think he was. I think he is in the Hall of Fame from memory. I mean, if you've got that kind of status, just think a little bit before you say that. No, I have to again, look, I have to really hone in on his phraseology here. Yeah. He didn't say they should have gone and whacked him one. He said, I'm surprised that they haven't, if I'm not mistaken. Right. So I think if you want to drill down into that, he's sat there.
I don't know how those Liverpool players didn't go off and just whack him.
Yeah, I don't know how.
It's pretty strong.
It is, but it's not. It's also not him saying they should have absolutely gone and sparked him out for that, right? It's him saying that if I was in that situation, I don't know how I would have contained myself. And to be honest, that's probably accurate in terms of if he was in that position, or Keano was in that position, or a number of those players were in that position, even maybe a couple of Arsenal players of that era, right? I mean, we had the Keown incident, and we had a number of incidents that if you watch them back now, they look a bit ugly. That was a different generation. And I know what I'm describing is different to going and whacking someone. I get that. I do get that. But my point is that was the temperament of the day. But it's not now. Things change. Things have moved on. We're in 2026 now. And in the same way that I say I don't want to see it, I don't really want to hear it either.
I think you summed that up well. I mean, I have this kind of weird feeling towards Gary Neville and Jamie Carragher when it comes to their punditry. Whenever they've got things to say on Monday Night Football or whatever, I always want to tune in and hear it. I can't help myself. I always tune to the Gary Neville podcast. I think their insight can be valuable and brilliant. And I think when they want to be, they're the two best pundits in the world, or certainly in English media. But then they just have moments where I sit there and they speak on the game, or they speak in a way where I think, did you forget what you said before? Or did you forget, like when Carragher talks about a lack of respect when he's discussing Mo Salah, but then he totally disrespects Casemiro by saying, leave the football before the football's left you, when this is a guy who's won everything he's won in the game. Gary Neville can come that hard with comments like that, but forget how he was as a player at times, or Jamie Carragher, how they were. Now, he might defend his position and say, I never pushed it into play off the pitch. And okay, that's fine. That's not to say that he always behaved perfectly. I think he's been quite admitting of that himself. Like, I think they could be brilliant, but I don't know. Like, I think it's probably besides the point. Like, ultimately, the bigger point is Martinelli shouldn't have done that. And I've discussed that on Goonerverse News, but I'm not going to beat him with a stick. Like, I'm sorry. I'm going to assume that the guy didn't realize how badly Bradley was injured and thought that maybe it was our throw. Yeah, he got it wrong. He just got it wrong. He probably thought it's our throw. He's gone down trying to waste time. And, I think Martinelli and maybe Frimpong did that earlier. Frimpong, it did look like he twisted his ankle. But, he was fine the rest of the game. I don't know. Sometimes I've played football and sometimes you think, oh, I've really done something, then you're fine. It was a very strange game, Sheroy. It was a very, very, very strange game. Where does it leave the title race for you? Like 6 points clear? Like, it's such a shame that we have this energy, because if we spoke a week ago and said we're going to be 6 points clear in a week, wow, we'd have been buzzing. Well, another 2 points. Class. It's that missed opportunity of 8. How do you feel about it?
As you were.
Yeah.
As you were. It's an opportunity missed. Yes, there will be the people out there going, this is exactly the sort of thing that you need to do if you want to win a title. There'll be people out there going, you couldn't even... I know. There'll be people out there that are going, you couldn't beat Liverpool home or away. In fact, you couldn't score against them. There'll be loads of that, right? There will be. But I'm sat there going, yeah, but who are our closest competitors? It's a 2-game swing. They don't look that consistent. City, probably the most credible of the two that are 6 points behind us. They've got some bad injuries. We've got a lot of players coming back. I'm all right. I mean, the only position that I think I'm going to be looking at over the next couple of weeks is when is Calafiori back and what's going on with Hincapié, if I'm being honest with you. Because when Miles came on, and more that I watch of Miles this season, I think he's demonstrating why he is sadly now our third choice left back. And I worry about that position to such an extent that maybe in the weeks to come, I might consider moving Timber to left back and playing White at right back, because I might be more comfortable with that. That might be something that the manager explores. That's the only thing that I'm thinking of in terms of potential vulnerability. But I look at our fixtures, I look at those of our rivals, mate. At the time of recording, it's the 8th of January. All right. Everyone's said it for a very long time. I'll keep saying it. We're in a good position in the cups. We're in a good position in the league, and we're probably in the best position in terms of our squad depth and our squad health when compared to our rivals. As you were, you take it, you dust yourselves off, you move on. It's been a congested Christmas period. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and do a tie. I'm not blaming the result on the weather, but those are pretty shit conditions. It just seemed like a night to forget for fans and players alike. Just let that one sort of roll off your back and look forward.
I hate when people dismiss the whole rain thing. Look, yes, it rains for both teams, but what it does, it doesn't impact how well one team can necessarily play against the other. But what it does is it impact maybe the type of game you're getting. Now, I was saying on Goonerverse News in my match reaction, we didn't get, like, both Liverpool and Arsenal had opportunities to drive at one another, and they never did. And I'm like, why? Sometimes on a waterlogged pitch, I'm not saying it looked waterlogged, but sometimes the ball doesn't move with you. Like, there can be a bit too much water. So you're trying to carry through. So maybe they wanted to keep it quite safe in terms of passing. And I'm saying both teams. Maybe people just needed an extra touch than they normally would, and everything was just a bit slower and a bit safer. I think, yeah, I think to a degree, maybe the weather would have dictated the kind of game we got, but that would have impacted Liverpool too. I don't think we're able to go with the pace of Gakpo and Frimpong the way they'd have wanted to. So, like, I don't know. Conditions matter in sport. I don't know why we kind of laugh them off as not mattering. Of course they matter, but it's just not like a reason or an excuse why we didn't play better. I think we had an issue with intent, and like I said, we had an issue with our head loss. On the title races, very quickly, I agree. Like, actually, like, the last thing on my mind really is the title race. I'm looking more at concerns about individuals. I'm looking at our mentality a little bit from the way we kind of dealt with that game. Looking at the fact it's a bit of an opportunity missed with the extra 2 points, but I'm not really kind of sat there feeling any differently about our title race or feeling like, oh, we played terribly. I don't think Arsenal played badly. Just felt it was like a really weird lack of intent in that game. So I'm quite calm on the title race. Let me ask you this. You mentioned Miles Lewis-Skelly. I think he's looked so shaky, which is such a shame, because when he had a little period around Christmas where I thought he was looking really bright. I think he ended the game okay against Liverpool, but he started it horribly when he came on. This Mark Guehi stuff, I think there's real legs to it. And it's not just because David Ornstein and John Cross have come out and said something, but it's because I don't think Arteta trusts Lewis-Skelly to be the kind of left back he wants him to be. I'm not saying he doesn't trust him at all, because he played him at the Bernabeu last year. So of course he trusts the player, but to trust him to be the type of left back he necessarily wants him to be, to evolve with what we've been doing tactically. And I think Lewis Skelly suits more what we've asked Subamendi and Rice to do a lot this year. So do you think there's a chance Guehi comes in and Lewis Skelly becomes a rotational option in midfield?
Yeah, I really do. I really do. I mean, if you're looking at Arteta's MO and you look at a lot of the players that we play at fullback and the players that he favours at fullback, they're centre backs. That he then tells them what they need to do in his system. He bleeds them in, and then they claim their place in the team. And I think he looks at. I mean, I don't need to say I think. I mean, he said this, right? He talks about how he thinks someone is going to fit into a group. He talks about people's psychology. He talks about the chemistry with the players. He talks about the people that they have around them. He talks about whether they're proven winners. He talks about their mentality after a bad performance and how quickly after that they can put in a good performance and all of those sorts of things, right? And Mark Guehi is that kind of guy. Now, I'm not sitting here questioning whether Arsenal want him, but what I will question is, given what's happened with City's back line and what Liverpool couldn't do in the summer that they quite rightly think they will need to do in January, are we going to push as hard for a player like that as our competitors might? And I think if we don't get him, I think that's the reason. I don't think there is any other reason. Ultimately, you never know, right? You never really know what's going on behind the scenes. But look, man, you were one of the first, not necessarily even on this podcast. You did a video on your channel to speak about Guehi and the prospect of us coming in for him. And I think today is the first day that the official journos and the official ITKs came out and said something. But the rationale in those articles and a lot of the messaging there was what you'd been banging on about at least a month ago from memory. So no, it's not that far-fetched, and you shouldn't have had the amount of shit in the comments that you got for that video.
I did, I couldn't believe it. There was a comment saying, I immediately switched off this video the minute I saw Guehi and Livramento as two players. We've actually been linked to both since I put that video out. I don't know how strong the Livramento links are, but they are there. I just think that if Man City were in for Livramento, we wouldn't be surprised, right? Well, what have we got? We've got an injury-prone Ben White, an overplayed Jurien Timber, who are both centre-backs converted fullback, and we need someone who's a little bit more of a marauding outside type of option. So I thought Tino Livramento from a struggling Newcastle side would show real ambition. I doubt we'll do it, but I just put it out there as a bit of a throwaway one. But I thought there's some potential to it. But Mark Guehi, I couldn't believe people really wrote off that one. I thought, why? There's 6 months left on his contract for Palace. He could be a Premier League winner. He could be playing in the best defence in England, whether he starts week in, week out. He could be playing with two of the best defenders in the world. Now, because of the City injuries, you're right. Like, it basically means, that interest is not just coming with, the money and the Pep pull and the Haaland pull and the Man City pull and all that. It's coming with a clear and obvious space for him to just slot into. Arsenal, on the other hand, are basically saying, do you want to come and compete, be a part of the group? Like, I'm sure you'll get some minutes. And I don't know how good a sell that is. Maybe he just says he'll wait till the summer and assess all his options, because Arsenal have been interested for a long time. I think there's really something in this, though, Sheroy. Like, I think Arsenal are going to make quite a compelling proposal to him. I don't think we get linked to the point of John Cross and David Ornstein coming out and saying things if we're not genuinely serious about trying to sign this player.
And you said last week, Andrea Berta loves a good deal. Now, when you're looking at a player of that caliber, you know that there isn't long left on his contract. You know that you've got the London pull when you're comparing the other clubs to him. He doesn't have to sort of uproot his life by any means, right? He just has to move across the capital. I think Andrea Berta is the kind of guy that probably gets bored in transfer windows when he's not doing something, and might be knocking on a few doors saying, "Oh, come on, give me something to do, mate." Not that he's from East London. I don't know why I did that, but he's probably just sat there going, "Look, I mean, there is a signing here." Yeah, he's probably just like, "Come on, just give me a little something to do." You didn't give me the Semenyo one. I kind of wanted to chase that, but you didn't let me do it. Let me try a little something with Mark Guehi. I'd be, and I saw on X today a lot of people going, "Arsenal, Arteta, you're sick. There's something wrong with you." We're like, why are you going for another defender? But look, man, Calafiori hasn't been fit all season. Nketiah just went down. Timber, we know, is playing too many minutes. White is injury prone. Gabriel had a big injury last year, has been injured this. Like, you will probably get opportunities. I say the same thing over and over again, but I don't look at our team like this has to be our first 11 all the time anymore, man. I look at our squad. Look, I know that if Gabriel Saliba fit, I want them playing. I'm not suggesting that. But I am not just sitting there going, well, that must mean that whoever your backup is has to have some sort of relatively significant drop-off because these guys are going to be fit for 36 games a season. No, they're not. They're absolutely not, right? And the way that I said I was feeling uneasy about Miles just now, and the way that I feel slightly uneasier when Nketiah is there as compared to Calafiori, that's okay because there are three of them. There are three of them where I feel relatively confident. I didn't even mention Mosquera, who's been out for a while, right? There's another one who looks good but picks up an injury. The amount of football we're playing, what was it, 10 games in January? Bro, you're going to play.
9,
and 9. And you have the opportunity potentially to be part of something special.
I think there's plenty there for Guehi to want to be a part of. I really do. You're right. The amount of games we're playing, the direction of this team, playing under Mikel Arteta, playing in this defense. Like, I get it. The thing is, because it's a World Cup year, basically, here's my prediction. I think he'll stay at Palace and it becomes a straight shootout. You know, and when that happens, City will still have Ake, Stones, Kusanov, Diaz, Gvardiol, all like on the books. So I still think that becomes a really interesting proposition. You know, Canate played well for Liverpool tonight. So even if he wants to go there, you know, it's not a guarantee that he's going to be playing week in, week out. So he's basically, I think, got to weigh up a lot of things. I think Arsenal might be saying, and this is purely guesswork, people. I think Arsenal might be saying, if you are looking to move in Jan, we'll do it now. Like if that's what you're looking to do, we'll pay the money. We think it's worth it. If he says, look, I think I'm just going to wait till the summer, they'll back off. Go, no worries, we'll talk then. Like I think that's how Arsenal will play it. What's your prediction?
My thing is, I think if Arsenal say, I have a feeling that Arsenal will probably say, do you think you can wait until the summer? Because that's the likely avenue for us. And he might say, well, actually, no, I'm sorry. And I think at that point, because of the aggression with which City and maybe Liverpool will pursue him, I think if he goes in January, maybe it does end up being those two clubs because of what I said earlier, because of the need, right? But it's interesting because the landscape can change very significantly if players are. If we're looking at a summer transfer window, don't forget how often do we say, man, imagine the kind of players you could buy if you were the Premier League champions, or if you were Champions League finalists, or even winners, for example, or if you won the Premier League and a domestic cup. Suddenly, players, even if they're not really going to be nailed on in terms of the best 11, they look at that and go, yeah, but I'm probably going to get a lot of games for a special group and I'm walking into the champions. That then it comes with its own allure, man. It absolutely does. I think that was not just the money, but I think that was a massive reason why Liverpool got players like Wirtz and Isak and all of those. They went and said, right, well, this guy's just won a league in his first season. He might be doing something special. Now it's panned out the way it's panned out. Like, I get that, but I think that probably had a big part to play in it. It's another reason why I really want to get this one over the line, you know, because I was too young to really, really remember the moves we made when we were champions in transfer windows. I really was just too young. And to be honest with you, from the bits that I do remember, because it was my early teens, even when we won leagues, we didn't necessarily move like champions in the windows, you know, to the extent that I think we could have and we should have. Whereas now, with the financial firepower that we have and the clear intent from this manager, this ownership, Berta, I'd like to see what we do if we're champions. That could be a very, very exciting window. But again, there will be a lot of people saying, how are you sitting there talking about being champions when you couldn't score against a dead Liverpool side, man? Shut your mouth. So I understand that. I understand that too. There's a long way to go, but can't help but be a bit excited. You know what I mean? Am I the only one that's been sitting there trying to figure out when the parade might be just to make sure that I'm free on that day? I don't know. Maybe. Who knows?
Listen, I can't pretend I haven't looked ahead at what May looks like, but just to have a little glance, just to be ready. You know, it's work. You know, got to be. Look, we'll round it off there. I mean, we haven't really talked to Portsmouth or Chelsea in the cup games come up, which is actually a bit of a shame because there's so much to it. We do apologize to everyone. I know that this is again a shorter pod. You know, like I said, there's just so much content coming out. We've got the player ratings, we've got the match reaction, we've got loose cannons. I'm not trying to give you less Sheroy. I promise I'm not. It's just recording times. You know, it's 11 p.m. at the time of recording now. There's more content to be recorded. There's lots going on. So do forgive us that we're not trying to shortchange you. We're just trying to Keep everything snappy, as enjoyable as possible, and make sure that we're not bombarding you too much, but that we're all managing our time the best way possible. Again, a big thank you to NordVPN. As always, remember there is a free 30-day money-back guarantee, which is risk-free, is what I'm trying to say. It's risk-free with the 30-day money-back guarantee, but all links and details are in the description below. Sheroy, quick question. Are we progressing to the next round of both cups?
Yep.
All right, cool. Let's see if we do it. It's another big week for very different reasons. Sheroy, big thank you. Remember, everyone, go subscribe to the Goonerverse. Go check out the Goonerverse podcast if you want to check us out on audio platforms, and you can see what other videos we've got here. Right. Oh, I went the wrong way. You can see what we're uploading. This is neat, isn't it, Sheroy? But a lot of people won't know that Max has made this happen behind the scenes. So it all looks very professional.
It's so clean. And since I've stopped making content, I'm not actually speaking to Max as much as I used to. I need to drop him a message and just say, yo, man, the work you're doing on James's channels is sick.
Yeah, you're doing great work. All right, love everyone. Big thanks. Catch you next week.